All right, Pizza took that one over Heretic Initiative. So, tell us a little bit about the match.
Heretic seemed a little bit flaccid, I have to say. It wasn't really their best match. They just shooting that Balgorn right at the beginning meant they just lost so many ships before they killed anything, and by then it was just too late.
They had some valid targets in the logistics and the Vexers, some lighter DPS, some lighter tank ships that would have had a better DPS to EHP value, but they wasted too much time on the Balgorn. Probably jealous that it was also phallically shaped. So.
I don't know. I don't think that kind of setup is doing very well generally in this tournament. Being able, like a kind of high DPS cruiser setups, it seems like most of the more normal things people are bringing are too resilient.
Yeah.
Like they last too long for you to burst something down that matters enough. So like they're either shooting at Vexers, which don't end the match for them, or they're shooting at battleships, which take forever under logistics. So they're just in a tough spot in terms of like what to actually do with that composition, I think.
So we saw Noctis as well, and it was salvaging. But, I mean, of course, it did have a more serious role.
Yes, Newt Noctises are actually legit. I think this is the first time we've seen them in a live tournament, but they've been theory crafted before. For 3 points, you actually get quite a bit of mobile newting power, because you can just fill up the hives with small newts, and it's actually pretty decent.
It's definitely innovative.
Yes.
And you can put some salvagers on there, and if you're winning, pick up some of that cash.
A little bit extra risk.
Got to make that bread, though.
Yeah. So I mean, of course, you know, it's a little bit funny because of the salvagers, but was it a good setup? Would it win against a quality team?
It definitely wasn't top tier.
It didn't feel top tier.
It's
I mean, it was like
the
solid.
most polite
but
response.
It was unfocused, I guess would be a good
yeah,
way
it
to-
seemed kind of disorganized. I mean, it's fine, but like it seemed like all the ships in it were good, but they didn't really have anything to do with each other.
Yeah, it wasn't very cohesive. It was just kind of all over the place.
But high value ships that all do a good job at something, and
I mean, I
I'm
guess
sure
that's
it
a
makes-
strategy too.
I mean, it
ships that
seems
are
like a
really
pretty versatile team. Like they have fine damage, they
Yep.
have decent tank, they have plenty of options to disrupt the other team. Like
It just didn't seem like a team that had a very strong, this is how we're going to win a match.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like you have to be able to answer that question. How do you win a match? And this guy's kind of, well, we kind of do this, we kind of do that, and we hope the other team brings a bunch of thoraxes and then dies because they picked the wrong target.
But we have newts. That's good.
I don't know. I think it would be
It's
okay
okay.
against a lot of rush, like battle
Yep.
cruisery setups. Even like I don't know about
The,
like a
the,
Navy
Navy
Brutix
Hurricane,
team
Navy
would
Brutix
probably
teams would have wrecked it, I think,
probably
with good target calling.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, the thing, you would want to be able to get around the main group and try to get the logistics off the back without taking a whole lot of damage.
Yeah,
And
but
if
they-
you could do that.
Yeah, but they can't get around anything. I mean, they're like Balgorn, Prophecy,
Megathron.
Megathron. Like,
Well, the Megathron can't do anything to you. It doesn't have any way to, like the only thing there that
You're talking
really
about
has
the
a
Thorax
lot of
need to get
control.
around.
A potential rush team against the Balgorn team.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think that,
Sure.
yeah, if they can get around, get the Logi without taking too much damage, which is pretty easy, you just commit frigates, keep all the big ships in place, then you'll do okay. But it was unfocused, and I would imagine if an FC came on the field against that, he'd kind of be like, WTF do I do?
I mean, they had a great plan for what they were doing if they were winning.
Yes.
Yes.
Pick up the
Salvaging.
loot, get some
Yeah.
money. Maybe a little bit ahead of themselves. All right, we do have some graphics for the next match. It's Obsidian Front versus Drunken Disorderly. Anything interesting on these two teams?
So between the two of them, Drunken Disorderly, I mean, they haven't done super great, but they were able to beat the Kadeshi last Sunday, so that was nice. Obsidian Front, most notable because they made a really, really good troll in the description they sent to Mutani.com about their alliance. We're really impressed by that. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, defeated Mildly Sober, who brought the Haulers. So that's their only win is against Haulers.
Well, and Drunken Disorderly came by their loss, honestly. I mean, they came up against
Yeah.
PL really early in the upper brackets, so it's understandable that they're down here since they are a fairly new tournament team.
So we've had Razor and Solar Fleet, and those have really been the I think it's the only two really big alliances. If we were to go back in the alliance tournament 5 years, there would be a lot of the really big alliances, and now it feels more
The
like
really big
smaller.
alliances are actually in this one. Most of them got knocked out already.
Yes, but I mean, I think that's the difference. Like 5 years ago, it would all be these 1,000-man alliances, and there would be a ton of them. But here we're seeing all these smaller tournament
I
teams.
mean,
Why is that
I
happening?
think there's a culture developing of quite a few teams now actually playing tournaments as their like EVE Online gameplay. like because of the SEL, there's groups of people now who can spend an enormous amount of time dedicated to tournament play, and alliances that are not focused on that, which often big SOV alliances are focused on, like big SOV TQ Eve. They're not going to divide up and put in the same amount of effort, and so they're either not here or they're getting knocked out because the teams that are spending their entire time playing the game focused on the tournaments are just better.
Well, and I was that way for a while in Rocket Pell. Coming up to AT10, I would take out fleets tailored around people learning to individually pilot their ships and think for themselves, which is all core to having a good tournament team, is having individually competent pilots as well as good theory, and that's where we all fell short because I'm retarded. But other than that, we had some pretty good pilots.
Yep, and so the small groups that fly in small groups often are going to be at an advantage there,
Right.
compared to an alliance that tends to fly in 200-man fleets. You're going to let some of those skills atrophy, even if you've had pilots that in the past have been really good at it.
And I mean, we heard, I think it was Shadu earlier who said that an alliance like Goonswarm, for example, has a guy who volunteers to run it, and he'll get a few people and they'll try it, but it's not like this is #1 priority by the
Yes,
alliance.
definitely not.
Right.
For a lot of these alliances, it's actually considered kind of a hindrance. I think a lot of alliance leaders would rather than their teams not, or their alliance not have a team. We had one alliance that accidentally sent their ISK to the wrong person and so didn't get in. And like, there's a lot of these teams that I think would just rather have their people focused on like their
Yeah, to
space
be-
empires.
People and their money.
Yes.
To be competitive here, you need you don't need just one smart person who's. I guess if you take like 10 really great pilots that can carry an alliance tournament team, and then move them to TQ, where those 10 people can wield giant fleets of like the bulk of your alliance, it costs a lot. You know, like those people can do so much on TQ that if you take 10 of them and remove them from your alliance to actually be competitive here,
Yeah.
you just cost your alliance so much that.
And it's also, you need way more than 10. Like you're talking about usually
Sure.
like 30 plus people that have to be, this has to be their main thing if you want to be a competitive team for
Sure.
months and months. That's why you see some alliances like Pandemic Legion just shuts down during tournament season. Like they just sit in one place and don't do anything and spend all their time testing for the tournament.
Well,
Guys, we do have a graphics that I kind of want to run you through here. It's a little bit about the points. Fozzie, would you like to
Yeah,
talk?
so at the, what is that here? The left-hand side of the screen, you've got a list of all the different classes of ships, groupings that we have with different points in the game. And then these are all the ships and what you can actually spend on them. And then over on the right-hand side, there is 2 example teams. This is actually 2 that were used last weekend. The Dominic's team there is the one that Hydra Reloaded used, with Dominic's and then a Nearest for the Logi, and then a bunch of Damps. And then you also have the Gnosis team that Red vs. Blue brought that a lot of people really enjoyed. And so this just kind of shows how you put a team together. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. The Domi team there has a lot of their points focused just on those Dominixes and the few ships, and then has to spend very few points for the rest of the team, while the Red vs. Blue team has it very spread out. They've got a lot of ships in that like 13 to 16 point range, which means that they are able to essentially spread it out into more or less powerful ships.
It's also maybe worth saying now that if you're watching the Alliance tournament and loving it but haven't played a lot of EVE, on TQ you don't have to use points to field ships.
That's
like
true.
we use this point system as a way to control balance in the Alliance tournament environment and to just sort of provide
Keep
a
it
format
interesting.
that that works when it's limited by the amount of people rather than by like in EVE where you can bring as many people as you want,
You can
spend as
bring
much
whatever you
money
want.
as you want. So
Yeah,
I
and
feel
this-
like I should say that.
It is worth noting too, though, this tournament is taking place on TQ. It is taking place on our main server. It's just a different type of gameplay than most EVE gameplay. So
Yes, and-
in average EVE gameplay, we don't have points.
And of course, the ships lost here are lost.
Yes.
Like, I mean, if you've
These are real
invested
ships.
billions into your ships and you lose a match, then, well, you know, that's tough luck.
Well, the greatest thing is that EVE lets you play your game your way. You get to choose how you want to play, what you want to do in the game. You're not confined to X or Y storyline. You do what you want.
If you don't care about Amari and Princess Amidala, you don't have to. You can do whatever you want.
I spend all my time in EVE Online trying to defend her.
Yes. Or you can do that if you want.
Yes.
And of course, sometimes
Amidala.
it's not really the gameplay you choose. Sometimes it's the gameplay someone else chooses,
Yeah.
which is the
And then
unfortunate.
you can choose their gameplay right back.
Yes. Then you can plot and scheme. And we do have the stories of people who come in and kind of get in trouble and then plot for months and then go back and get even. But anywho, we are ready with the next match. It is the Obsidian Front versus Drunken Disorderly.
I'm going to go with Drunken Disorderly with this one.
Again, hoping for a low-sec group, drunk and disorderly.
Yeah, me too.
They lost to PL, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Well, you know, that's an honest loss. I think I'm going to go with Drunken Disorderly as well.